The Rangers drop a tough 3-2 overtime decision against the Colorado Avalanche, and they really needed Igor Shesterkin to make one of those saves.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1226 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Rangers, tough loss in Colorado against the Avalanche, a game that felt like was kind of theirs for the taking. It was a battle all the way through it, but it felt like the Rangers mostly had the better of play, not by a great margin, but by enough of one that you thought that they were on their way to a win in this game. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And we're going to go through pretty much all of them. Also going to have some thoughts on Filip Chytil and him being back in the lineup and obviously over whatever was keeping him out of the lineup, the upper body injury. But I do want to spend some time on Igor Shesterkin because I feel like he didn't make the saves that they really needed him to make late in this game and then also in the overtime. And let me preface this whole thing by saying that I'm a big Igor Shesterkin fan. I wanted the Rangers to lock him up long term. It still feels to me like they overextended themselves a little bit more than they needed to, giving him $11.5 million per season for 8 years, along with the full no move clause. That is a little bit much, but the bottom line, Igor Shesterkin in a big game, game 7 in the playoffs. I don't think there's anybody I'd rather have between the pipes than Igor Shesterkin. So I'm a big time Igor fan, and he made some good saves in this game as well. The one that really stood out to me was early in this contest. We had the Avalanche was already up 1-0 at this point, and they almost made it 2-0, and it was still pretty early in the game. Igor made a nasty sliding glove save against Nathan MacKinnon, so that was outstanding. A lot of other good saves in this game as well. We saw him come sliding out of his crease to smother a puck, lost his helmet on the play. Igor obviously, played well at times in this game, but to me, between the game-tying goal that the Avalanche got with 1 minute and 15 seconds or whatever it was remaining, somewhere in that ballpark, between that save, or rather that goal, and the goal that the Avalanche scored in overtime to win it, neither of those was unstoppable. And my biggest takeaway from watching those two pucks get past Igor Shesterkin is that he's got to keep at least one of those two shots out of the net. Maybe not both. I'm not going to say either one of them were necessarily soft goals, but to me, I look at them, those are medium danger scoring chances. And there were also a couple of things that happened on those plays where maybe he could have gotten a little bit more help from his teammates. But the bottom line, Igor Shesterkin, the franchise goalie, the guy that is going to, starting next season, make more money per season than any goalie that has ever played this sport, I think he's got to come up with at least one of those. So to go ahead and go through these two plays here, we'll start with the game-tying goal. You've got the Avalanche with their goalie pulled, and we've got Lehkonen burying a rebound with 1 minute and 13 seconds. And when I say that Igor has to make this save here, I'm not talking about Lehkonen burying the rebound from the doorstep. I'm talking about the shot before that. We had MacKinnon passing to Rantanen. Rantanen takes a shot, which, yes, technically Igor did make the save, but it trickled through him, and the rebound is put in from the doorstep. To me, he not only has to make that save against Rantanen, but he's got to catch it cleanly and not allow the puck to get loose, not allow the rebound opportunity. Because Igor on this play had a very clean look at the shot from Rantanen. There was really no traffic. I mean, when you consider where they were in the game and everything that was happening and the way Colorado was swarming in the Rangers zone, it was kind of a miracle that he had this clean of a look at the shot, but he wasn't able to catch it cleanly. And that is somewhat disappointing. Obviously, the puck is then loose and put in from the doorstep. Now, there was other blame on this play too. I thought initially when MacKinnon had the puck, Riley Smith kind of over-pursued it a little bit. We saw him kind of really take himself out of position. But then again, it's Nathan MacKinnon. You don't want to allow him to get a free shot at the net. So Rantanen was left, fairly open. And then Lindgren, I felt like he could have done a better job boxing out Lehkonen. When you watch this replay, it's something that I noticed watching it back again here today. Lindgren, for just the briefest of seconds, it looked like to me that he let up just a little bit. I don't know if he thought that Igor caught this puck cleanly, But you saw Lindgren. He's in the crease. He's got positioning in theory, and the shot happens from Rantanen, and for just a second, Lindgren starts to kind of stand up straight, and it looked like he just lost his focus, or again thought the play was dead just for a second. And that's all that it took. And we saw, once again, Colorado then scoring from the doorstep. So there's blame to go around here. But for me, I would have liked to have seen Igor get the Rantanen shot cleanly. And then you look at the game winner in overtime, and you could put some blame on Mika Zibanejad here too, because, the puck's getting toward the crease. Somebody on Colorado had the puck. They're moving toward the net. And Igor, nice play, is able to poke it away. The puck goes behind the net. Now, Mika basically had all sorts of positioning. I mean, this to me is like a 90-10 puck, and Mika wasn't able to get control of it. He's there first and tries to, for some reason, move the puck along the boards instead of just skating away with it. But the bottom line, Colorado took the puck away here, and the Rangers never got it back. 2 passes after this happened. You got Taves taking a shot, and he scores 5-hole on Igor Shesterkin. Now, Igor, he did a nice job moving to his left on this play, obviously anticipating the shot, but he left the 5-hole about as open as you will see any player, any goalie in the NHL leave the 5-hole open. I guess Igor was just anticipating a high shot by Taves, but Taves went low, and it went right through Igor. It was there was way too much of a target through the 5-hole there. So again, would have liked to have seen Igor Shesterkin come up with one of these saves. He's obviously played very well recently since getting back in the lineup. I think he'll play well in the next game. Whenever he starts again, possibly the next contest. We will see. Not going to lose confidence in Igor over a game like this. But yeah, man, that stings a little bit. You would have liked to have seen him come up with preferably both, but at least one of those 2 saves between the game-tying goal at the end of the third period and the game winner in overtime. And the other thing that kind of makes this sting a little bit, Igor loses this game to Mackenzie Blackwood. Now, to be fair, Blackwood, since being traded from the Sharks to the Avalanche, has played very well. I believe his goals against, and it's a small sample size, but his goals against with the Avalanche is right around like 1.6, somewhere in that ballpark. So he's been very good with the Avalanche. And Blackwood, not a terrible goalie by any stretch, but let's call it what it is. For his career, this guy's basically a career backup. There was like a season or 2 back with the Devils where maybe he was like the starter or like the 1 goalie to a 1A goalie, whatever the situation might have been there. But for the most part, again, Blackwood is a career backup. And when you look at Steve Valaket's Clear Sight Analytics, this is always interesting. He kind of outlines all the scoring chances for both teams and projects how many goals that each team should have scored. This thing, like any stat, like any metric, I don't think is completely infallible. But I think, usually when you look at this, it sounds about right. And when you look at Valaket's Clear Sight Analytics, findings from this game last night, the Rangers in this game were expected to score 4.04 goals. So that obviously paints a picture where obviously, Blackwood played very, very well and held them to 2 goals rather than double that. And additionally, the Avalanche were projected to score 2.89 goals in this game. So they only end up scoring, one more, or basically like a 10th of a goal more than they were expected to. So that's not the end of the world. But again, the Rangers were projected, at least by Valaket's, measurements here, to win this game by more than a goal. They didn't win it. And it was largely because Igor got outdueled by Blackwood. So, we're not going to put this all on Igor. That's the other big thing I want to mention here. I don't want to make it sound like this is just going to be an Igor bashing session, because again, he has played well recently. We've seen what he's done over the years through the playoffs. You see the deep runs that the Rangers have made in 2 of the last 3 postseasons. That's due in part to a lot of different players, but nobody more significantly than Igor Shesterkin. He's been the guy leading the charge on those deep playoff runs. So better days ahead for Igor, but again, would have liked to have seen him come up with at least one of those 2 saves at the end of this game. So in just a second, going to shift our attention to basically the rest of the Rangers, because as I mentioned, Igor wasn't blameless. We're not going to put this all on him. The Rangers had multiple chances in this game to deliver a knockout punch, and unfortunately, they just failed to do so. So we're going to take a look at a couple of those, and we're also going to talk about Filip Chytil being back into the lineup and his latest injury and how he fared with Chris Kreider and Arthur Kaliev. All of that is coming up. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast, easy? Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidate much, much faster. Now, you can speed up the hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Want to shift our attention to a couple of the other instances in this game where the Rangers had a chance to deliver that knockout punch. You know, obviously the Rangers were down 1-0 in this game. They get the shorty from Carrick. They later get a goal from Edstrom, which was assisted by Carrick. So the fourth liners really delivering for the Rangers in this game. But you look at the chances the Rangers had to win it. I mean, the overtime period alone, they had at least, I would say 3 different opportunities to put the puck in the net and, get the 2 points that obviously they were looking for. The Rangers had a power play very early in the overtime period, less than a minute into the overtime. This is kind of interesting because the Rangers won the faceoff here and they maintained possession of the puck, and they end up getting a power play before the Avalanche ever even got possession. We saw the exact opposite happen when the Rangers played the Stars. That was an overtime game that they also ended up losing. The Stars ended up scoring on the power play, but the Rangers won that opening faceoff. They get the power play, and everything is set up for a win. They call a timeout. Obviously, I don't think resting the players was too much of a concern because, the overtime had just started. Although, 3-on-3, it can be a little bit taxing, and Panarin had been out there. But they have the timeout. They get everything set. They get the 4 guys they want on the ice. They talk about what they want to do, and they go with Panarin, Fox, Kreider, and Lafreniere. Now, to be fair to these 4 players, the Rangers did maintain possession for almost the entire power play. They were swarming in the offensive zone. They got a decent amount of shots on net, but nobody finished. The bottom line, when you are in overtime and you've got a 4-on-3 power play and the game is on the line, obviously, and you've got a game here where the only players on this Ranger team to score goals are fourth liners, somebody's got to come through here. Somebody's got to come up clutch, and somebody's got to, send the Rangers home with a win. Obviously, the Avalanche got a great game from Blackwood, like we talked about. But during this power play, he made some good saves. I don't think there were any spectacular saves by Blackwood on this power play. And again, the Rangers give them credit for that. They spent the first 140 of this power play in the Colorado zone. And you're hoping and thinking that it's only a matter of time because, sooner or later, these penalty killers are going to keel over, and sooner or later, you're going to get one past the goalie. Unfortunately, it just never happened. The Avalanche finally got it out with about 20 seconds to go on the power play. So again, I'm not going to crush any of these 4 players for this showing on the power play, but the bottom line, man, somebody's got to come through in crunch time here, and nobody was able to do it. So that was unfortunate. And then not too long after this, Mika Zibanejad is out there, and he gets a breakaway opportunity in the overtime, and this was not Mika's best on this play. He kind of just, it was a nice play to set up the breakaway because the Rangers had a defensive zone face-off, and Mika was able to come away with the puck, faked out a defender, and he's right up the center of the ice. He gets behind everybody. He shows some burst going into the offensive zone, but he kind of just went in there and took a wrist shot, and Blackwood denied it and turned it aside, and that was pretty much that. I don't know. Mika Zibanejad, we know this from watching him. On breakaways for sure, but also in shootouts throughout the years. He's got a lot more in his arsenal than what he showed here. Now, on one hand, maybe the idea is, well, I'm just going to take a quick shot. Maybe I can, fool Blackwood. He's expecting me to do something fancy, and I just let go a quick wrist shot. I don't know. It felt like he kind of telegraphed that that's what he was going to do. It just wasn't nearly as dangerous of a scoring chance as you're expecting on a breakaway in general, much less on a breakaway from someone like Mika Zibanejad, who obviously has struggled this season, but before tonight, had a 6-game point streak, has been showing more signs of life. I thought played decently well in this game also. He's been shooting the puck a little bit more. You actually see some one-timers from Mika that you believe have a chance of going into the net, so that's nice to see as well. But I don't know. I got to see a little bit more from Mika here. It just kind of felt, and I'm not questioning his effort, but it felt like kind of like a half-hearted effort in some ways. Like, I'll just take a shot, whatever. Like, there's got to be more. You got to try something more than what we saw from Mika here. And again, maybe trying to surprise Blackwood, but obviously it didn't work. And then there were instances in regulation where it felt like maybe the Rangers overpassed at least a little bit. There was one in particular where the Panarin line definitely did that. Trocheck had a chance to shoot. Grade A, golden scoring chance, and he passed to Lafreniere for a less dangerous shot. So that was unfortunate. That's just one example. There were a couple of opportunities like that as well. And look, you got to give some credit to Blackwood. You got to tip your cap a little bit. But the bottom line, if the Rangers get one goal from a top nine forward in this game, they win the game. They had about 64 minutes to do that, and none of them were able to make it happen. They had some chances, but nobody was able to finish. Again, the only two goals that were scored came from the fourth line players, and we might as well give some props to them real quick and go through the goals here. Sam Carrick had the shorthanded goal. This seemed to get the Rangers going a little bit, and a lot of people on social media were pointing this out. In the last 3 games, Carrick has scored 2 goals after stealing the puck from first Jack Hughes and now Cale Makar. Now, on this one, it was a little different. I mean, Makar basically just fumbled the puck, just lost control of it, but Carrick was very opportunistic, picked it up, went it on the breakaway. And something that was very impressive about this, too, is that, Carrick, I'm watching this, and he's on the breakaway. The Rangers are shorthanded. And I'm thinking, there's 2 Avalanche chasing him, including Makar. And I'm thinking, Makar's going to catch him, right? But Makar never really made up any ground. And what a move by Carrick on the doorstep. Man, we wish Carrick had the puck in overtime there, maybe instead of Mika. Maybe Carrick could have gone into the bag of tricks there. But the bottom line, Carrick went in, went to his backhand, and scored, basically crashed into the crossbar while doing so. So that was great to see. And then Edstrom with another goal. The fourth line just exploding up the ice. Carrick making a nice move around the defender, centering for Edstrom. Edstrom scores from the doorstep. Edstrom's got sneaky good speed, and that's starting to stand out a little bit more. We don't see it a whole lot because you think fourth line and guys are out there, grinding along the boards and fighting for pucks and trying to wear down the opposition. But when Edstrom does get the puck in somewhat open ice, you do see that burst. And apparently he can shoot the puck a little bit as well. So hopefully we see more and more of that going forward because as we know, a little depth scoring definitely never hurt anybody. But in just a second, going to keep everything rolling here. Want to shift our attention to Filip Chytil. He talked before this game about his injuries, talked about maintaining a positive mindset. So we're going to talk about those quotes, and then we're also going to discuss the performance of the Filip Chytil line in this game. He was flanked by Chris Kreider and Arthur Kaliev. We will get to that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. We all love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year in the summer, Green Day and the Smashing Pumpkins at Citi Field. The energy and excitement were off the charts. Now Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so that you do not have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It is Gametime. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Figure we can close out today's show by talking a little bit about Filip Chytil. Obviously, he was just out for a handful of games with the latest upper body injury. Also of note, he was the first Ranger on the ice for practice on Monday. They had him at practice centering a line of Chris Kreider and Arthur Kaliev, and that was indeed the Ranger third line for this game against the Avalanche, both Chytil and Kreider returning to the lineup. We'll talk more about that trio in just a little bit. They also had Chytil on the second power play unit, but Chytil gave some interesting quotes after that practice. He was asked if the injury was concussion related, and what he said was, it's more complicated than that. And he also apparently mentioned to the reporters that in the future, he'd be willing to sit down and talk about it further. But I guess right now, the Rangers, Filip Chytil, all going to play the cards pretty close to the vest. I mean, I don't want to speculate too much because I just don't know enough about concussions. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a neurosurgeon or anything like that. Maybe we have a couple listening. That's at least possible. But yeah, I mean, look, he had to miss games. It is what it is. And obviously we hope that he's doing well. Anytime Filip Chytil goes down, anytime he takes a hit, I think all of us kind of hold our breath a little bit. But again, I'm no expert on this matter. So my only real option is to defer to Filip Chytil himself and all the doctors that handle this on a daily basis and, obviously know a heck of a lot more about concussions and head injuries than I and probably most of us do. But this is what Filip Chytil also had to say. Another interesting quotes here, talking about being back in the lineup and missing some time. It's just helping me to be better. Of course, it sucks that I got to miss the time. I've missed so much time in my career. Every time I'm back, I just work hard. I just focus to be better. That's my goal. It's the fuel for me to be better. It's not like starting from zero every time, but it's always the hurdle in the way. And I believe that in the future, it's going to come back for me in a good way. I'm positive about all these things. Yeah, that's about as positive of a mindset as anybody that has gone through what Filip Chytil has gone through can possibly have, and more credit to him for doing that. Obviously, he missed a boatload of games last year, only played in the first 10 regular season games, missed the rest of the season, came back for a handful of playoff games as well. But, another season here where, at least thus far, he's kind of been in and out of the lineup. I mean, he's mostly played. He's played more games than he's missed by quite a long shot, but he has missed some games, as he mentioned. And he was also asked how he has stayed patient during this process. Obviously trying to get back from the latest injury, and this is what he had to say about it. It's hard. It's hard because you want to be out there every game. It's very frustrating to watch my team play games. I learned so much last year. I went through a lot last year, which helps me mentally. Right now, this hurdle happens. I'm just stronger in my head. So again, obviously he's got the right attitude, and we just keep our fingers crossed that he's okay and that he can stay in the lineup, and that sooner or later these concussion issues can be, a thing of the past. I don't know if they're ever really completely in your rear view, but as much of a thing of the past as they possibly can be. So as far as the game goes, once again, we had Chytil out there with Kreider and Kaliev. I thought, Chytil overall had a pretty nice return game. Kreider mostly as well. I think Chytil maybe more so than Kreider. But to kick things off, I actually want to talk about, the new kid on the block, so to speak, and that would be Arthur Kaliev. Look, I know it's only 3 games. I know he just got here. I know he was a waiver pickup by the Rangers, so I think expectations should be at least somewhat kept in check. I don't think anybody can look at what Kaliev has done through 3 games and come away impressed by it. He's just very, very unnoticeable throughout the majority of these games. Really, in the 3 games thus far, I've only noticed, I would say, 2 plays from Kaliev. The first one was against Vegas. He had a chance to shoot in deep and chose not to. Instead, he forced a pass, and that didn't really work out. And then in this one, he almost got his first point as a Ranger. There was a delayed penalty. I believe it was a delayed penalty. It was either that or the end of a power play. I'm trying to remember which it was at this point. But you've got Kaliev passing down low for Kreider, and then Kreider redirects the puck in front for Riley Smith, and a great save was made by Blackwood. So obviously, Kaliev came close to getting his first point as a Ranger there. It was the end of a power play. I'm remembering that now. Because the way I remembered that, this is also a good point in this episode to acknowledge the fact that Arthur Kaliev in this game got 1 minute and 4 seconds on the power play, whereas Will Cooley got 0 minutes and 0 seconds on the power play. We should probably take a minute to let that sit in. Now, to be fair here, Will Cooley is in quite the offensive drought right now. In fact, I believe it's now 10 games in a row where he does not have a point. But I don't know. You look at what Cooley was giving you earlier this season. This is somebody that you want to get going again, right? I mean, this is a guy that obviously was scoring at a very high clip early in the year, looking like far and away the Rangers' most improved players. I mean, there was a stretch there where I think you could easily say that Will Cooley was the Rangers' best player. Forget about like most improved or best young player or anything like that. He was their best player. So I think you want to get him going. I realize you also want to give Kaliev a chance. But again, and this goes back to what I said about guys like Berard and Othman, it applies here for Cooley as well. This is your homegrown guy. You drafted him in the 2nd round. You saw him do a lot of good things last year. You saw him do a lot of good things this year. The idea of going with Kaliev over Cooley on the power play. Now, I realize they have different skill sets, and maybe the idea is they want a shooter, a bona fide shooter on that 2nd power play unit. I don't know, man. It just doesn't sit right with me. To me, this has to be Cooley's spot. I think they're kind of overdoing it with Kaliev a little bit. Again, I want to see him get a chance too, but not at the expense of guys that, have played well for the Rangers, whether that's Will Cooley, whether that's Brett Berard, I don't know. I'm not seeing it with Kaliev so far, and I realize it's early, but maybe this is kind of his open tryout, and if it doesn't work, you'll see the Rangers, go back to Brett Berard in the lineup. They'll go back to Will Cooley on the 2nd power play unit, all that good stuff. But yeah, I just could not believe when I was seeing, Kaliev get pretty good amount of power play time and Cooley not get any. But anyway, back to this line as a whole. There was kind of a weird shift that they had where they almost scored, which obviously would have been awesome, but they ended up making a bad defensive play. This is on Colorado's first goal of the game. You had Kreider making a heck of a pass to Filip Chytil on the doorstep. Kreider was along the boards, and he makes a really nice touch saucer pass to the center of the ice. Chytil's making a beeline for the net. Just a better save, point-blank save by Blackwood. But an impressive pass there by Kreider for sure. This is not an easy pass to make under any circumstances, but when you're just getting back into the lineup, to me, the degree of difficulty here is pretty high. So for him to be able to do that, it was really nice. But we all know Kreider is completely snake-bitten when it comes to assists this year. I believe he still has just the one. But the play goes back the other way, and this is where this line kind of faltered a little bit. You've got a goal by Kelly. The Avalanche pass out of the corner. Kelly was wide open. Just an enormous amount of open ice in the center there, which obviously cannot happen. And as Joe pointed out while they were showing the replay, the biggest reason for that is that all three Ranger forwards had basically started back up the ice. Between Kaliev and Chytil and Kreider on this play, all three of them were either in the neutral zone or at the very top of the Ranger zone when this goal was scored. And I'm not sure why they just assumed that the Rangers had possession of the puck. You can't make that move until you're sure your team has it. And clearly they didn't. And it leads to a goal for the Avalanche. We also saw Kreider take a bad penalty in this game. Offensive zone. This is right after Chytil had put the puck just wide from the doorstep, and Kreider gets the offensive zone penalty. Now, it kind of worked out here because this is when Carrick scored his shorthanded goal, but nevertheless, you don't want to see that either. I tweeted out during this game, and I'll say it again here. The Rangers have to get these bad penalties under control, whether it's, offensive zone penalty like we saw here, or just the unnecessary penalties or the, absent-minded penalties like too many men on the ice. We've seen that way too much from the Rangers this season. It didn't happen in this game, but it's happened a bunch over the last bunch of games, really, again, the entire season. And then, you get the delay of game penalties on the Rangers every now and then. It feels like that's been happening more than it should. We actually saw one against Colorado in this game, so that was a nice breath of fresh air there. But I don't know. To me, the Rangers, they got to do a better job avoiding the unnecessary penalties, the offensive zone penalties, the mental mistake kind of penalties. If something happens when everybody's going full bore and you're trying to prevent a scoring chance, I at least understand that. But they got to get this under control going forward, and hopefully they do. But yeah, overall, this is a tough loss because it felt like the Rangers played well enough to win. It felt like they were in position to win. It felt like they were going to bring this one home, and it just didn't happen. There's a few positives we can take out of this one, but the one thing I'll say for sure, you can't question the Rangers' effort in this one. The execution, maybe even a couple mental mistakes here and there, but it felt to me like the Rangers had their foot on the gas this entire game. I realized early in the first 5 or 6 minutes, whatever it was, Colorado had the Rangers back on their heels quite a bit. To me, that's just the case of playing a very good team in their building. They came out strong. The Rangers hung in there and eventually, started to punch back. And, for my money, very even game. I'd even give a slight edge to the Rangers, like I said. Steve Valiquette's numbers certainly back that up as well. Just unfortunate. The good news here, though, is to bring everything full circle from, about a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, I was looking at the Rangers schedule that was coming up. It was after the Rangers had just beaten the Blackhawks. And you could see that the Rangers, the next 4 games were going to be tough. And then 5 games after that were not going to be so tough, at least on paper. The 4 games in question here that I'm talking about were the Stars, the Devils, the Knights, and the Avalanche. Those are the next 4 games after the win against the Blackhawks. Those are 4 tough teams for, I would say, Stanley Cup contenders this season. And looking at the schedule, I felt like if the Rangers just went 2-2, that would be okay for me because the Rangers had really been struggling, and you just want to see them survive that stretch before they get into a little bit of a softer portion of the schedule. Well, the Rangers did more than survive it. I was looking for 2-2. Instead, they go 2-0-2. So that's 6 points out of a possible 8. That's pretty good. The one thing that I'll say, though, is it doesn't feel as good as it should because it felt like they could have won this game. Even the Stars game, it felt like they could have won as well. But the bigger reason is when you look at the big picture, you look at where the Rangers are in the standings, you look at the fact that they're technically still 4th to last in the Eastern Conference. They do have some games in hand on some of the teams that they're chasing right now, but 4th to last in the Eastern Conference, and you just can't afford to give away points really in any situation. If this was last year, and the Rangers were at or near the top of the Eastern standings, I think we'd feel a little bit better about this overtime loss. Yeah, there's certain things that you don't like about it, and of course you always want to win, but you'd be feeling good about this recent handful of games here. And I think we still can feel good, and I still do feel good. Hopefully you do too. Again, 6 out of a possible 8 points against 4 really good teams. But that win was right there for the Rangers last night, and they didn't get it. And I don't think that this is the kind of game that they probably would have lost last season. They would have found a way to get the job done. They weren't able to do it here. It's unfortunate. Hopefully the Rangers can take care of business against some of these not great teams that they're going to play. I mean, there's some good teams. There's some decent teams. There's teams that are in the playoff chase. There's even like the Blue Jackets. They're going to play them. The Blue Jackets right now are the second wild card, so that's going to be a huge game for sure. But obviously, hopefully the Rangers can take advantage of a portion of their schedule, which at least on paper is a little bit easier than the one that they just went through. One other bit of news here. Bo Grew has already been sent down to the Hartford Wolfpack. There was no corresponding call-up for the Rangers, but there wasn't really any reason to expect one. Kreider was activated from the IR. Filip Chytil's back into the lineup. So, yep, Bo Grew goes back down to the Wolfpack without appearing in a game for the Rangers. But, yep, figure we can call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, at jchick17. Once again, that is at jchik17. And, yeah, thanks again. We'll see you guys next time.